And so I had protesters outside the auditorium at the university. And some of those protesters found their way into the auditorium. Most of them were outside with the banners, fuck Sean Penn or whatever it was. And I was in the wings, and they had told me, there's so-and-so as the head of the university department here is going to introduce you and then moderate the conversation.
What is up, everyone? In this clip from the Club Randa podcast, we have a clip where Bill Maher and Sean Penn just called out the insanity of woke culture, and honestly, they're making some excellent points. Within this clip, Penn admits he couldn't even play the same role today that won him an Oscar, and Maher takes it further, comparing today's universities to Mao culture revolution. Then Maher drops a truth bomb about how America is already swimming in socialism, whether the left wants to admit it or not. This is one of those clips and one of those rare moments where Hollywood and common sense actually align for once. So it's a pretty exciting one. Without spoiling anything, let's just get into it, where of course I'll be giving you my unfiltered take.
And I'm waiting in the wings in this auditorium, and I'm hearing the introduction. And at some point, close to saying, "And now, ladies and gentlemen, Sean Penn," and I come out, they mentioned the movie Milk.
Yeah, you won the
And
Oscar
it got,
for that.
yeah, it got a big applause. And I was listening to that applause, and I was realizing the contradiction in what was happening outside with the protesters and a few inside. And when I came out, I think the first thing I said, which was, I think, a fair observation, is, were that film made today, I couldn't play that part.
Right.
And the same people
That's
who 2 minutes before they were applauding Milk were thinking, fuck him about me too. Suddenly we're hardwired into an acceptance.
And also institutions are becoming the opposite of what they're supposed to be. Colleges are supposed to be about scholars.
Yeah.
And free speech and opening your mind. And now it's about, you can't say this, how dare you?
I mean, I agree. Universities have completely abandoned the whole concept of intellectual debate. They're no longer about challenging ideas, they're about policying them. And if you don't fit the latest ideological mold, you are out. The entire purpose of higher education used to be about the exposure to different viewpoints so students could think critically and form their own beliefs. And now it's just a glorified re-education camp where professors and administrators force feed students a narrow, politically approved worldview. We've gone from challenge authority to conform or else. And the worst part of it all, the students actually go along with it. They've been raised in an era where disagreement is considered violence, and where hearing a dissenting opinion is treated like a trauma that requires therapy, dogs, and a safe space. It's funny because these kids are acting like reading a different opinion is the equivalent of surviving a war zone. And what about the professors who actually dare to teach reality? Well, they just get mobbed, canceled, and fired. And then no one hears from them again. It's quite frustrating because we're quite literally producing an entire generation of people who've been trained to be offended by everything instead of actually thinking for themselves. And we're quite literally setting up these students to move on to the world, and how exactly are they supposed to function in the real world? If they can't handle a single uncomfortable idea in a classroom, how are they going to survive in business, in politics, in life as a whole? And I guess the simple answer to that is they won't. So I think Maher is dead right. Colleges are no longer places of higher learning. They're factories for ideological robots who are programmed to scream bigot or fascist at anyone who steps out of line. And I guess we can only see with time what that's going to look like for our future. Of course, let me know if you guys agree with that down below, but let's go ahead and get into these other big points.
Not only that, worse than that, it's you can't teach at this high a level. How dare you? Hence the NYU organic science professor who was fired because too many of the kids' parents wrote complaining letters, you're making a course too hard. And these are the people who are going to be our our health professionals.
Oh, no. I mean, colleges have been taken over by ideologues.
Yeah.
There is something going on here, to come full circle here, that is very reminiscent of Mao's Cultural Revolution in 1966, with DEI officers as the Red Guard. I mean, people like that. Now, of course, there is a place for DEI officers, and there should be some. Like, I think Michigan State has 140. That's a lot of witches to be hunting.
Yeah, it's a lot of witches to be hunting. It's a big investment in the hunting of witches.
It's a well said, exactly. So, that doesn't make me a conservative to point that out.
Mm-mm.
I just always want to keep it real. That's
Listen,
and
and we've talked about this before. Whenever people applaud their socialism, and they use that word, I want to fight them, because we know from every experiment around the world of socialism, it doesn't work.
oh,
Capitalism is not sustainable. There are, if your grandmother is alone at home and someone breaks in, she calls 911, she doesn't have to put her credit card down when the police show up. That's socialism also.
yeah.
But don't call it that.
Well,
Shut the fuck up and just communicate policies to people without relying on the trending titles and all the bullshit that so many of the
yes, there is a perfectly rational. It would take 2 seconds to explain socialism in the rational way, which is America is already quasi-socialist, as it should be.
as it should
As
be.
every Western
Yes.
democracy is, and most other countries in the world that know how to do it right. It's not just Western countries now. But yes, there is places where the military
This
is
is going to be the
socialism.
battle of the next month with the debt ceiling.
Yeah, of
this
course.
is going to be the battle.
What is bigger socialism than making tanks we don't need? It's because it's a jobs program in districts that make tanks, and they want to keep making them even if the Pentagon says we have enough already. That could not be more socialistic. So, and then we have a lot of excess social. I mean, what was the bailout of the pandemic? $6 trillion, really? And most of it was stolen. We know that. That's a little hard to take. So, yeah, we have socialism already. I've always thought we should have socialized medicine in more
There
along
are
the
areas
Well,
that we can, by the way,
yeah.
these are sellable stories.
Right.
If you don't call them social.
I think Bill is absolutely right here as well, and the general idea that he's arguing for with Sean has some truth to it as well. People love to pretend that America is some pure capitalistic utopia, but being honest, we've already got massive government spending, bailouts, and entire industries propped up by taxpayer dollars. If you think back to the pandemic, that just exposed what's been happening for decades. That $6 trillion bailout, most of it disappeared into fraud, corporate handouts, and wasteful programs. That wasn't some free market failure, that was some big government incompetence on full display. And yet every time government screws up like this, their solution is always more government. And here's the thing, Bill makes another great point about how this stuff is all about branding. If you call it socialism, people reject it. But if you just quietly expand government control, suddenly it's acceptable. That's how we ended up with corporate welfare, bloated entitlement programs, and military-industrial complex that just prints money for defense contractors. We already have some form of socialism, just not in the way the woke crowd wants to admit. And I think honestly, the real question that needs to be asked is how much further do we want to take this? Because history shows that once government gets a taste of this level of control, they usually don't stop. Of course, that's my opinion. As always, I'd love to hear what you guys think. Let me know if you agree with this point. Let me know if you agree generally with all of the points made within this clip. Let me know down in the comments below. Be sure to give us a like and subscribe, and of course, we'll see you guys in the next one.